Topic 1. The sum and difference of a binomial. Now, when you multiply the sum of two terms by the difference of the same two terms, in which you have the same first term and then you have the same second term, but you have the plus and the minus sign. Therefore, your expected answer would be the square of the first term minus the square of the second term. Let's have an example here. X plus 7 and x minus 7. To get the answer, we first have to square the first terms and then minus it to the square of the second term. So the square of the first term would be x squared, and the square of the second term would be negative 49. Finally, your answer is x squared minus 49. Try it out yourself. Pause the video and solve this equation. Topic 2. The square of a binomial. Let's start this topic. So, we do have three procedures in the square of a binomial. First, you square the first term. Second, multiply the first term and the second term twice. And third, square the last term. So if you remember this procedure, you can just simply answer any questions about the square of a binomial. Now let's test what we have learned, shall we? X plus 4 squared. Square the first term. X squared. Multiply the first term and the second term twice. X times 4 times 2 or 8x. Finally, square the last term. 4 squared or 16. And your answer is x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now try it out yourself. Pause the video and solve this equation. Topic 3. The cube of a binomial. Now, if you're given an expression, you have the quantity a plus b raised to the power of 3. Therefore, you multiply a plus b by itself 3 times, right? This is a plus b multiplied by a plus b multiplied by a plus b. Now, once again, it will take time if you multiply the following expressions. That's why we do have a shortcut, and we call this one the cube of binomial. So therefore, if we have the quantity a plus b raised to the power of 3, this will be your expected answer. Now question, how will you get this answer? First step, you cube the first term. Second step, that would be thrice the product of the square of the first term times the second term. So therefore, you always deal with 3. It is always 3. You always deal with 3. You always have 3. 3 times the product of the square of the first term times the second term. And the next step would be thrice the product of the first term and then square the second term. So as you can see, it's alternate. Last step, that would be cube the second term. Now, if you have a minus sign, you have the same step, but the difference is you will now have positive, negative, positive, and negative. I hope it's clear for you. The first answer will be positive, next will be negative, positive, and then negative. Now, let's have an example, shall we? Y plus 3 raised to the power of 3. First step, cube the first term, y squared. Second step, thrice the product of the square of the first term times the second term. So 3 multiplied by y squared multiplied by 3. Step, thrice the product of the first term times the square of the second term. So 3 multiplied by y multiplied by 3 squared. Step, cube the second term. 3 cubed. If you put it together, it would be y cubed plus 3 multiplied by y squared multiplied by 3 plus 3 multiplied by y multiplied by 3 squared plus 3 cubed. Your final answer would be y cubed plus 9y squared plus 27y plus 27. Now, try it out yourself. Pause the video and solve this equation. Topic 4. The square of a trinomial. Now, if you have this given expression, you have quantity a plus b plus c raised to the power of 2, it means you multiplied this expression by itself twice. If you multiply this one using the long method, I'm sure it will take some time. Well, because it's long, obviously. And also because you will need to multiply this one individually by each term. That's why we have a shortcut for this. We call this one special products because we do have a shortcut way. If you have this kind of expression, this will be your expected answer. And now you'll ask, how do we get this kind of answer? So first step, you square the first term. So our first term is a. You square the first term, a times a. That's why you have a squared. Second step, you square the second term. So our second term is b. So b times b. That's why you have b squared. Then third step, you square the third term. So our third term is c. So c times c. That would be c squared. So that's why you have a squared, b squared, c squared with regards to the following procedures. And the next step, multiply the product of the first term and second term, but 2. So our first term is a, and our second term is b. So a times b, and then times 2. So therefore, you always deal with 2. It's always times 2. And then we multiply the product of the first term and the third term by 2. So we have the first term a times the third term c. So a times c, then times 2, then the last step. Multiply the product of the second term and the third term by 2. So that's why you have b, our second term, and our third term is c. So b times c and then times 2, then simplify to get the answer. Let's have an example since we understand now. X plus 3y plus 4z squared. Our first term is x. Our second term is 3y. And our third term is 4z. First, square the first term, x squared. Second, square the second term, 3y squared or 9y squared. Third, square the third term, 4z squared or 16z squared. Fourth, multiply the product of the first and second term by 2. 2 multiplied by x multiplied by 3y or 6xy. Lastly, multiply the product of the second term and the third term by 2. So 2 multiplied by 3y multiplied by 4z. So it will be 24yz. So your final answer is x squared plus 9y squared plus 16z squared plus 6xy plus 8xz plus 24yz. Now, try it out yourself. Pause the video and solve this equation.